Let me ask you guys, do you think a marriage can survive infidelity? Yeah. If you do, raise your hand. If you don't, raise your hand. Yeah, most of you think so. Here's the thing. When you look at the behavior in isolation, it's outrageous, right? I mean, what she's doing is just outrageous. But that's like getting into a movie, a 120-minute movie, and you get in at minute 78, and you look at what's happening for like a 4-minute, that's not the whole movie. And when you realize what I was explaining to her at the end.
The first time I was unfaithful to Dan, it was because I was upset with him. I had a women's breakfast plan for me and my girlfriends. For whatever reason, he just woke up that morning and was just being a jerk. I asked him for money. Dan told me no. I'm a brat. I'm not really sure how else to put it. I got really upset and I reached out to an ex from the past. One thing led to another and we ended up having sex. 2 days later, I did come clean.
I felt gutted, cut completely down the middle in half. I felt like a part of me died that day.
After the first affair, I did make a vow to Dan that I would never cheat on him again. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Following the first affair, Dan didn't give me a chance to redeem myself. Dan continuously accused me of talking and seeing other men when I wasn't. I just figured that if he was gonna accuse me, I was just gonna go ahead and do it. For 2 whole years, I just did it whenever I wanted to do it. I was unfaithful to Dan with about 20 guys. When I'm out doing these things, I completely block out being a wife, being a mother. It's just completely gone in my mind. For the longest time, I was able to keep all of my affairs a secret until one day my daughter found a video on my phone and showed it to Dan. Dan completely flipped out. When people look at me, they would never even think that I had a sexual addiction. I'm a wife, mother of 4 children. I've taught preschool. I've owned my own business, which is all completely opposite of the life I've been living. I know what I've done is wrong, but it's a struggle.
As we go through life, we all define a currency. When someone takes a child, particularly a young girl, and objectifies her and abuses her sexually, then oftentimes she learns that's what I have to offer, and it becomes your currency. And boy, when you step outside the marriage with someone, the adrenaline is rushing and they're telling you all the things that would be nice if it was every day, right? It also made you feel dirty. It also made you feel guilty. It also made you feel like you were doing something wrong. There are wounds in you that are gaping wounds that are open. And no matter how bad you want to be different, until those wounds are healed, you're not going to be different. People make attributions, and the way you make attributions is you observe yourself and what you do and what situations you've been in, just the way you watch other people. Like if you've got somebody at the office that shows up every day, they're early and they got everything worked out and they're all buttoned up, and as soon as it's time to work, they're ready to go. And you're stumbling in, Trill's trying to find it. Then what do you attribute to them that they're all buttoned up, right? If somebody asks you, what's that person like? Oh man, they're Johnny on the spot. They're buttoned up and ready to go. How do you know that? Because you've observed it and you've made those attributions. You've attributed those traits to them. That's the same way you form your own self-image. You have observed what you have done throughout your life, particularly in critical situations, and based on those observations, you attribute certain characteristics to yourself. And when you have observed yourself be sexually molested and rewarded for it, and then you've observed yourself early on default to that to get attention from boys, and it worked, then you start to attribute to yourself, what I have to offer is physicality. And so sometimes you just stop developing your mind, your personality, you just default to that. You attribute that trait, that characteristic to yourself, and then so when the pressure's on, that's what you default to. That's exactly what has happened to her here. She's learned that's her currency. That gets in there and it's hard to get that out. And that's what I mean about, he needs to, it's true what she's done is outrageous, but you have to look at, that's why I say I focus on why people do what they do and not what they don't do. Because that's the intent. You have to look at the intent. And so we'll figure all of that out, and I think she'll get some help.